Chapter 125. Leah brought his hand to the tip of his nose in confusion and sniffed. It was the faint smell of yellow roots, left behind when he was pranking Nina. His deep gaze was filled with uneasiness. Could it be that Gu Mingming found out that he had interfered in the affairs between females? Li's expression did not change, but he started to feel uneasy inside. He said calmly, "Yellow roots. Where is it? Is there more? Give me some, please." Gu Mingming held onto Li's forearm tightly, and with every short sentence she got closer to Leah. By the time she finished her last word, her entire body was almost stuck to the tip of Li's nose. Leah was a little overwhelmed by Gu Mingming's sudden enthusiasm. That yellow roots was not a rare item. Why was she so anxious about it? But since she liked it, why couldn't he dig out the back mountain of Saint Nazir? "Yes, I have as much as you want." Leah smiled gently and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. Then he consciously transformed his white and fluffy big tail and swayed it in front of Gu Mingming. Then he accidentally let Gu Mingming pounce on him, and that big tail was hugged by Gu Mingming half willingly as she stroked it back and forth. Leah did not mind that Gu Mingming's hands were stained with the fishy smell. He just watched her play with indulgence and pampering while building a new fire by the stream with Elvis. Then Elvis handled the raw fish while explaining Gu Mingming's method to Leah. Leah referred to Bode's diligent roasting process at the side, and combined with Elvis's description, he tried to roast a fish. He tore a small piece of fish meat and sent it into his mouth. Yeah, there was no strange taste, so it could be given to Gu Mingming. "Gu Mingming, come, open your mouth." Leah blew a small piece of meat without the fish bones until it was warm and sent it to Gu Mingming's mouth, who was having a great time playing with a tail. Gu Mingming opened her mouth obediently. Once the fish meat entered her mouth, Gu Mingming's eyes lit up and her innocent big eyes were filled with surprise. She looked at Leah and praised, "Daddy Leah, you're really a master chef. This fish is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The combination of the honey and the fish is just right. It's the best in the world." If not for the fact that she was hugging Big Tail and had no time, Gu Mingming really wanted to give Leah 10086 likes. Leah especially enjoyed Gu Mingming's exaggerated praise. No matter how many times he heard it, he would always enjoy it. So, he handed the roasted fish to Elvis and let him feed Gu Mingming, while he turned around to deal with the second fish. His Mingming was really too skinny. Since it was what she liked to eat, he would prepare more for her. She had to admit that Li's hands were really fast. In the time it took for Gu Mingming to eat half a fish, he had already roasted 7 to 8 fish. Gu Mingming was in awe of Leah, who was looking at 7 to 8 barbecue grills at the same time. Was he a newbie who had just come into contact with fire? He must be a new graduate from New Oriental. But when Leah placed the 7 to 8 large fishes in front of her, indicating for her to eat, Gu Mingming was petrified. "Daddy Leah, I'm full." Leah frowned and pursed his thin lips, asking, "You ate so little?" Gu Mingming nodded, indicating that her appetite was only so big. She had already eaten half a fish, which was at least 1.5 caddies. Firstly, she was very hungry today. Secondly, Li's culinary skills were really not bad. Moreover, the original fish tasted fresh and delicious. If it was any other time, she would not be able to swallow so much. Aside from the topic, thank you baby Yu Xingmeng for the diamond. Congratulations to baby for becoming the first Tong Xing in this novel. After the 112p, it was time to wait for the recommendation process. During this period, Jean would ensure a stable daily update, until all the recommendations were completed. The editor originally said that it could be published now, but because Jean had promised her babies that she would let Elvis take up the position before it was published, so that everyone could eat more meat. So after discussing with the editor, the result was an inverted V of 300,000 words for this novel. So here comes the problem. Babies, if you have the time, please don't keep reading. Because when I publish it, the parts you are reading now will all be paid content. Parts after 100,000 words are all VIP chapters. Chapter 126. Leah did not force Gu Mingming and just said, "Then I'll bring these back and you can eat them later when you're hungry." Gu Mingming waved her hands and said, No, the fish won't taste good when it's cold. You and Elvis have been taking care of me all this while and you guys haven't eaten yet, you two should eat it." Elvis and Leah looked at the fish and then at Gu Mingming, thinking that there were so many of these in the water that even if everyone in Saint Nazir ate them together, they would not be able to finish them in 3 to 5 years. Although the yellow gravy was rare, Gu Mingming seemed to have a way to obtain it without bloodshed. Since Bode and Colin could help Gu Mingming get so much yellow gravy, it was even easier for the two of them. Since the ingredients were not rare, they did not reject it. The two of them ate the few big fish and exchanged their thoughts while eating. discussing how to improve next time. Gu Mingming's tummy was already round, so she clapped her hands and went to play with Sandy. It was not difficult to find Sandy among the crowd. After all, other than Nina, who was thrown out by Elvis, there were only Gu Mingming, Nina, and that unknown female left in St. Nazaire. Disregarding the unfamiliar female, Sandy had always been on good terms with Gu Mingming, and Bode also wanted Gu Mingming to teach him how to roast fish, so their fire pit was not far from Gu Mingming. When Gu Mingming came to Sandy's side, she saw a sullen Sandy and a badly battered Bode. One was pouting unhappily, while the other was circling around the fire with a face full of soot and soot. "What's wrong?" Gu Mingming sat beside Sandy and asked. Sandy twitched her lips and said, "I'm hungry." Gu Mingming turned to look at Bode, who had been busy all this while, and asked, "How long has he been like this?" Sandy replied, "He has been like this since just now, but not a single water shuttle can be eaten." "Gu Mingming, I'm so hungry. Can you roast another one for me? Just one." Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and was about to agree when Leah carried her up and said, "Gu Mingming is also a female and needs to be taken care of just like you. If you're not satisfied with Bode's skills, you might as well give other males a chance." Once Leah finished speaking, the surrounding males hurriedly offered their treasures. "Sandy, why don't you try what I roasted?" Leah did not say anything more and just carried Gu Mingming towards Elvis's cave. After walking for a certain distance, he then said, "If Sandy becomes more and more reliant on you, it will not be a good thing for her." "Why?" Gu Mingming was confused. "Isn't it just a fish? It's not a big deal if I roast it for her. I can't let her starve. After all, she's a precious female. The way you make food is very special. To learn it requires time and talent. Bode and the rest obviously don't have this talent." Chapter 127. "No. I don't think so." Gu Mingming had never thought that her care for Sandy would cost her life. She was in disbelief, but seeing that Leah did not look like he was joking, she could only sigh and say, "All right, I know. Then find some time to teach Bode and the rest. I feel that your skills are excellent as long as they can learn half of your skills." "Oh no, as long as they learn 30% of your skills, Sandy would not have a stomach ache." Leah smiled and nodded, agreeing to it. Returning to Elvis's cave, Leah found a brand new set of clothes from the depths of the cave. "The one you're wearing is dirty, take it off and change into another." Gu Mingming lowered her head to take a look. She was indeed covered in fish scales. She did not need to sniff closely to smell the fishy smell. Even she could not stand it, not to mention Elvis and Leah, who had an extremely sensitive sense of smell. Gu Mingming laughed awkwardly, took the new clothes from Lee's hands and looked at it. "Eh? Another new one? Where's my rabbit skin dress from the last time?" "I threw it away." Elvis answered easily. Gu Mingming's lips twitched. Threw it away? What? It's dirty?" Elvis answered concisely. F******. Gu Mingming exclaimed, hugging the deer skin dress on her tightly, refusing to take it off no matter what. "It's shameful to waste it. Clothes that can be worn again after washing, how can you throw it away just like that? Too much. What a waste of resources." Elvis and Leah looked at each other, feeling helpless towards Gu Mingming's thoughts. This girl did not even frown when she shared the precious yellow sauce in the beast world with everyone, but this beast skin, which could be taken anywhere, was extremely precious to her. Leah carried Gu Mingming up, measuring the new clothes while saying, "There are only 4 females in the tribe but 127 males. Even if the females change into 5 sets of new clothes every day, the tribe still has to throw away a lot of the food and fur used." Food and fur. Gu Mingming recalled the food that the males ate today. Tiger, cheetah, snow fox. Both of them were top-grade furs. Things that were hard to find in the modern world had become disposable items in this world. No wonder Elvis could throw away his beast skin dress without feeling the slightest bit of heartache. Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. Forgive her for being a commoner, an especially greedy commoner. Gu Mingming felt her heart bleeding as she thought about how she had thrown away all those precious animal skins. Cupping her hands, Gu Mingming looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. "Beast deity, don't bother about other people's divorce. Can you find some time to manage your people's extravagant lifestyle?" "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Elvis asked with concern. "Yeah." Gu Mingming nodded twice, pretending to be serious. "Where do you feel uncomfortable? Let me see." Leah placed the clothes at the side and walked up with concern to hold Gu Mingming's little hand that was covering her heart. He wanted to see if she was injured anywhere. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "When I heard that you wanted to throw my clothes away, my entire body ached, especially my heart. As long as you promise not to throw my clothes away, I won't feel any pain. Leah could not understand at all what kind of illness was this. He looked at Elvis, waiting for him to make a decision. Elvis was much calmer than Leah. Thinking about how she cherished the luminous pearl, he had a rough idea of what was going on. He nodded and said, "As you wish, don't throw it away, then don't throw it away. I'll dig a hole just for you to put the clothes you've worn before, how about that?" Aside from the topic, thank you to QQ reader Doryman and Xian for the reading tokens, thank you very much. Replying to QQ reader's comments, Blue Sky Ancient Rhyme said that she hated NPC literature, so dear, please don't join the QQ group and just read the main content posted by Gina. The main content is a 1v1, I'll leave the rest of the content in the group as an extra to satisfy the little babies who like NPC literature. Songstress, the content you want to read will be posted in the QQ group in the future. Dear, you can join the group and wait to share it. QQ group number 49277927 I'm not a beauty. Dear, I've seen your opinion, it's the same as mine. Please join the QQ group, you'll find your comrades. Chapter 128. What the heck, rich people are indeed different, offering a house the moment they open their mouths? Do you know how much the land in the Celestial Empire is now? Cloakroom. Gu Mingming's eyes lit up as she stared at Elvis. But, Gu Mingming looked at the dirty clothes on her, then looked at the new clothes that Leah had casually placed at the side. She really wanted new clothes. But, she did not want to use herself to exchange for them. There were some things that needed to be made clear. Gu Mingming took a deep breath, and when she looked up again, the atmosphere in the cave had turned heavy. Leah knew what Gu Mingming wanted to say to Elvis, so he turned around and left quietly, guarding the entrance of the cave to prevent them from being disturbed. Elvis frowned, that bad premonition struck him again, enveloping him in an unknown fear. Leader. Gu Mingming opened her mouth, and after thinking for a while she continued, "You know I don't belong here, the culture here is very different from the place I came from. We don't mate immediately after we reach adulthood, females and males have equal status, it's a virtue and not an obligation for males to take care of females, the females who are taken care of will feel grateful and not take it for granted." Elvis listened quietly, his thin lips tightly pressed into a straight line, his heart stretched taut, afraid that Gu Mingming would say the words he did not want to hear. But in the end, Gu Mingming still said it. "So, I can't mate with you, I really can't hand my entire life to someone I've only known for 3 days. Gu Mingming lowered her head, not daring to look at Elvis's eyes. Although they had only known each other for a short period of time, she knew how good Elvis was to her. But the more she knew, the more she could not make use of this liking. Indeed, what she said now was very cruel, but it was better to cut the Gordian knot than to drag things on, waiting for Elvis to sink deeper and deeper before saying, "I've always treated you as a friend?" That was something a green tea bitch would do. Seeing that Elvis did not reply, Gu Mingming took a deep breath and continued, "If you're angry, I can understand. I should have made it clear to you at the beginning. I'm sorry for causing you to misunderstand. If it's not convenient for you to continue taking me in, I can understand. I can ask Sandy if she can take me in for a while." Elvis did not say anything, but just pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and locked her tightly, not leaving any space between them. Just now, Elvis had truly experienced the pain of a blunt knife digging into his heart. Gu Mingming's words tore at his heart, making him remember the feeling of losing her with every inch of his flesh and blood. It was so painful that he couldn't breathe. It was so painful that he didn't even have the strength to shout, "I'm in pain." Elvis could not think of anything else, he only knew that if he did not hug Gu Mingming in his arms, the invisible wound on the left side of his chest could take his life. "Elvis, you're hurting me." Gu Mingming could empathize with how upset Elvis was feeling because his hug made her feel the same way. His heartbeat was clearly transmitted to her through his clothes. Every single one of her senses was telling her that she had done such a cruel thing, so much so that Gu Mingming felt an extremely strong sense of guilt, as if she did not reject Elvis, but rather abandoned him, the kind that abandoned him after messing around with him. Aside from the topic, "Elvis, Gu Mingming, why did you reject me? I provided food, lodging and play with you, I'm handsome, why did you reject me? Gu Mingming, your thinking is very dangerous." "Elvis, what?" "Gu Mingming, you're attracting green tea easily." "Elvis, what's green tea?" "Gu Mingming, eating your food, drinking your lodging, playing with your feelings and ravaging your body, then telling you, I only treat you as a friend." "Elvis, then you can be green tea, I don't mind." Chapter 129. Elvis heard Gu Mingming's cry of pain, but he could not control his trembling arms. He did not dare to loosen even the slightest bit, afraid that Gu Mingming would disappear like a cloud of smoke, never to be found again. Elvis. Gu Mingming could already hear the sound of her bones being hugged. She could not bring herself to criticize him, so she could only call out Elvis's name again. Xiaoming, don't leave me, Elvis said. Gu Mingming remained silent. How could she promise something she could not do? I won't fight for the first partner position before you forget him. I don't ask for cubs, I don't ask for partners, I don't even want a title. I only ask for you to stay by my side and let me take care of you. Don't go, don't go. Gu Mingming paused for a while before realizing that the him Elvis was referring to was probably Yu Xijin. While feeling helpless, she also heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was a made-up character, he still solved her urgent problem. She would not be at a disadvantage if she paired up with Song Joong-ki. Since Elvis was sure that she could not forget her old love, and promised not to XXO with her before she forgot him, then as long as Elvis's feelings for her faded, he would naturally give up on the thought of mating with her. Men aren't they all like that? How much infatuation could they have? Thinking about this, Gu Mingming squeezed her eyes hard to make herself look like she was about to cry, pretending to be hurt. All right, before I let him go, you can't force me. As long as you do what you say, I won't leave. Really? Elvis used his height advantage to pull his upper body back a little, lowering his head to stare into Gu Mingming's clear eyes, as if this was the only way for him to believe Gu Mingming's promise. Not leaving. Gu Mingming nodded her head cautiously, then smiled in a comforting manner. I just don't want to mate. Putting this aside, I still like Saint Nazir very much. You and Leah treat me very well, and there's also the cute Sandy. I promised her that I would make all sorts of delicacies for her. If I leave just like that, she will definitely cry and say that I did not keep my promise. I can't bear to see my baby Sandy cry. As Gu Mingming said that, she pulled herself out from Elvis's arms and continued, but since I can't mate with you, I can't accept your care for nothing. There were things I could do in exchange for my food and a place to live. Freeloading is not my style. Elvis wanted to say, it is enough that you can stay. But before he could open his mouth, Leah came in from outside and answered for Elvis. All right, first teach me how you brought Barit back to life. Teaching me, the witch doctor of the tribe, would be considered a great contribution to Saint Nazir. In return, I, the witch doctor, and Elvis, the tribe leader, will be responsible for your food and daily necessities for the entire winter. How about that? Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Leah. With only her and Elvis, the atmosphere was too awkward. Now that there was one more person, it felt much more relaxed. Smiling, Gu Mingming waved her hands and said, how is it brought back to life? Barit did not die in the first place. He just fainted from dehydration after not eating or drinking for 3 days. He just needed to replenish some water and he would naturally wake up. But then again, Barit's body is really strong, he could actually walk after drinking a few mouthfuls of water. If it was us, he would have to stay in the hospital for a few days to recuperate. Aside from the topic, thank you for the tips from QQ Reading Mo Shang and Doryman. Chapter 130. The platform of the deity's punishment was rarely activated and it was unprecedented for someone to come back to life after fainting on the platform of the deity's punishment. But in Gu Mingming's mouth, it was a small matter not worth mentioning. Leah held back his smile. Although time was short, he was already used to Gu Mingming's uniqueness. He just smiled and said, all right, since you've already taught me, it counts as a contribution to Saint Nazir. Can you stay with a clear conscience now? This doesn't count. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, this is just a simple basic knowledge. Using this sentence to exchange for a whole winter's food and lodging, this deal is too unfair. Such an obviously biased deal, even if you signed a contract, you won't be protected by the law, alright? Leah did not understand what signing a contract was, and even more did not know what legal protection was. But he could roughly understand what Gu Mingming meant. It was a matter of course for other females to accept the care of males. Even if they were not their partners, they could still order them around easily without any return. In the eyes of females, ordering you around was already a huge favor, how could there be a need to talk about return? Ah, what a joke. And in the eyes of males it was the same. Gu Mingming was after all different. Leah thought for a while and replied, you saved Barit's life, so he will prepare your food for this winter as repayment. As for the other daily necessities, Elvis and I will be in charge. You're not allowed to say no or else, we'll be sad, Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly and lifted it slightly. That charming yet seductive smile was so close to her that Gu Mingming swallowed her saliva. It was not Gu Mingming's style to disappoint a beauty. Moreover, Elvis and Leah would provide lodging and Barit would provide food. To a rookie in the wilderness like Gu Mingming, This was the basic guarantee for survival. Although it was too perfunctory to only use a sentence as a condition, but she could consciously do something to repay them, why did she have to make it so clear with words? Gu Mingming thought about it and nodded her head while squinting her eyes, saying, all right, I'll listen to Daddy Leah. Elvis, who was standing at the side, was expressionless. He felt very uncomfortable, not knowing if it was because Gu Mingming could not bear to part with Yu Xijin, or because there was going to be one more bereaved in this family. But he could still tolerate all this as long as Gu Mingming did not leave. Elvis heaved a sigh of relief and nodded at Leah, expressing his gratitude with his eyes. Leah was clearly better at communicating with Gu Mingming. Leah returned a smile. Without words, they could clearly read each other's thoughts from their eyes. They were all males who had yet to gain Gu Mingming's approval. That unknown Yu Xijin was obviously a strong opponent. At this time they had to unite all the powers that could be united so that they could make Gu Mingming stay when that male came looking for them one day. So, although losing Berit was a very unpleasant thing, it was better than letting Yu Xijin snatch Gu Mingming away. However, Gu Mingming did not understand the meaning of the eye contact between Elvis and Leah. She just felt a sense of relief, as though a shackle had been removed from her body after she had explained everything clearly. Without any worries, she then noticed what Leah had been holding in his hand. Wasn't that what she wanted? Daddy Leah, is this for me? Gu Mingming asked, but she had already snatched the item from Lee's hand. She held it in front of her eyes and looked at it carefully. Then she brought it to the tip of her nose and smelled it seriously. She could not be wrong, she could not be wrong. This was exactly what she wanted. Aside from the topic, good news, I've received notification from the editor that this article will be PK on QQ reading from the 5th of December to the 8th of December. If we win the PK we will receive more recommendations. So, Jintai Steel will add more updates to repay the babies for their support. Babies who are using QQ reading to catch up on the article, please do not read the article in these 3 days and catch up with the updates every day. And those recommendation tickets, the free ones, please give them to Jeaner. Thank you. If there are babies who want to reward Jeaner, please do so within these 3 days, because it will definitely affect the PK results. As for messages, I don't need to say it, right? If you love me, tell me loudly. Chapter 131. Leah looked at Gu Mingming's face that was full of curiosity and could not help but smile. His gaze was filled with tenderness as he replied, yeah, the scent you smelled on my hand just now was from it. You recognize it? Gu Mingming grinned till her teeth could not be seen. She nodded and said, yes, of course I recognize it. This is Ginger. Ginger? Leah savored the word. Although the name was different, Gu Mingming did not look like she recognized it wrongly. From honey, beast to fish, she had already given many different names. As such, Leah was no longer surprised by the new words that came out of Gu Mingming's mouth. He just thought that maybe he should get used to Gu Mingming's way of addressing things and accommodate her habits so that her life would be more comfortable. So, Leah did not correct Gu Mingming's wording and did not tell her that in the beast world, this thing was called yellow root. Yeah, if you use this to cook fish, you can remove the fishy smell. When the time comes, you can cook a big pot of it. It's fragrant, warm and convenient. Gu Mingming gestured as she spoke. But as she gestured, her little face suddenly collapsed and she said, what a pity there isn't even a pot here. I shouldn't have gone to learn business management. Wouldn't it be better if I knew metallurgy? Then I would know how to forge iron and cast a pot now. Pot? Elvis continued Gu Mingming's sentence. He did not like her frowning look and could not stand her disappointment and regret. If she wanted it, he would never back down even if he had to fight with the beast deity. Gu Mingming nodded and her cheeks puffed up like buns. She said, you all ate raw meat in the past so you definitely don't need this thing. But I really need it, my stomach can't take eating barbecue every day. Where can I find a pot? I'll help you find it. Elvis said. There shouldn't be one here. Gu Mingming sighed and decided to give up helplessly. But Leah circled his large tail and placed Gu Mingming at the base of his tail for her to sit steadily. His furry large tail formed an angle like a sofa for Gu Mingming to nestle comfortably. He sat sideways on the floor and played with Gu Mingming's hair while asking, tell us, what does a pot look like? Maybe we have it here too, just with a different name? Gu Mingming had never been immune to Lee's big tail. Once she hugged his tail and stroked his fur, she basically did not think before speaking. She would answer whatever Leah asked. A pot is a container for cooking. It can be roasted over a fire. It's usually made of metal, but now even if you give me a piece of iron, I don't know how to smelt it, so it's impossible for me to make a pot. Leah and Elvis exchanged glances, clearly not knowing what metal was. Elvis was confident in Lee's communication skills, so he did not interrupt and just stood quietly at the side, waiting for him to continue asking. Leah asked, "Other than iron, are there any other wok materials?" Gu Mingming thought about it seriously and replied, "There's also a stainless steel pot. Alright, there's also a pot made of stone. The Koreans use it to mix rice. But we also need steel tools to cut the stone, so we can't make a pot without iron. Sigh, I've been eating barbecue every day and my throat is starting to hurt." After Gu Mingming finished speaking, she pouted her lips to express her dissatisfaction, but there was nothing she could do. However, Elvis and Leah exchanged a look and both of them revealed a smile of tacit understanding. Aside from the topic, replying to QQ reading reader, "Little darling, forgive me for not being able to type out the emoji you used for your name, but thank you so much darling for writing the little drama for me. Reader 1 and Reader 2's conversation is very heartwarming. Thank you for your consideration. I might not be replying to your messages these few days, because I need to hurry up and prepare for the PK in the book city. If I write one more chapter now, I can write one more chapter later." Chapter 132. When Gu Mingming regained her senses from the joy of playing with her tail, a stone pot that was similar to the one she had unintentionally described appeared in front of her. Gu Mingming blinked her innocent and clear big eyes and stared at the pot for a long time. She slapped her thigh fiercely and said, "Let's go and find Sandy to eat together." Forgive her for being mesmerized by Lee's fluffy and white large tail. She had clearly discussed the big pot with them before, and from what she remembered, Elvis seemed to have made a few versions for her to see, but she seemed to be an outsider and was completely out of it. Her heart was completely focused on Lee's large tail that was wagging. Gu Mingming only came back to her senses when Leah kept his tail. But at this moment, Elvis's big pot was already done. Gu Mingming looked at the big pot that could be used as a bathtub happily. She thought to herself, "This time, Leah will not stop me from preparing food for Sandy, right?" It was just putting more ingredients into her own cooking and sharing some with Sandy. With that thought, Gu Mingming went up to carry the stone pot out, but, ouch! Gu Mingming misjudged her own strength and used too much strength. The pot did not move at all. Gu Mingming held onto her waist and said, "My old waist, it's going to break." Leah pulled her little hand over and placed her on his knees. A pair of slender and bony hands gently pressed onto her waist area. He used a great amount of strength and said while rubbing, "You're obviously a female, but you're always trying to show off. Do you think Elvis and I are just decorations? You even want to carry things by yourself? Are we so unreliable?" "I didn't mean it that way." Gu Mingming smiled apologetically and said, "I don't want to trouble others for things that I can solve myself. Or else you guys will be bothering me soon." "Silly girl. We will never be bothering you." Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand gently and kissed the back of her hand. He looked up into her eyes and said affectionately, "It's our honor to be able to take care of you. Give us such an opportunity, all right?" Leah nodded. Gu Mingming felt that her nose was about to bleed again. She pinched her nose with one hand and looked up. "Daddy Leah, you broke the rules." Leah glanced sideways, looking at Gu Mingming with an expression of, "I'm eager to hear more." Gu Mingming said, "You can't put your devilish face too close to me. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and pounce on you." However, Leah suddenly smiled and opened his arms wide. He retracted his chin slightly and said with a lustful smile, "It's my pleasure, you don't have to stand on ceremony." Puff, Gu Mingming widened her eyes and pointed at Lee's feet, shouting, "Daddy Leah, you've lost your integrity." Leah looked down and there was nothing beside his feet. He shook his head and said, "There's nothing." Gu Mingming laughed out loud and pointed at Leah. "You also know that you have no morals." Leah indeed did not know what moral integrity was, but from Gu Mingming's expression he should have been mocked, right? If it was in the past, he would have maintained a calm smile and tortured the other party until he regretted being born in this world. But at this moment he only felt his heart soften. It was clearly something he should be angry about, but the corners of his lips could not help but rise along with her smile. Facing Gu Mingming, he actually did not even have the ability to be angry. Aside from the topic, babies, there are still 2 more days before we start our explosive update on the 5th. Are you guys ready? Chapter 133. In the end, Gu Mingming brought the stone pot to Sandy as she wished. However, she sat in the pot while Elvis and Leah carried her from each side of the pot. Gu Mingming mocked herself along the way. So this was the feeling of sitting in the pot. It was clearly something she was familiar with, but when she looked at it from such a position, it still felt so novel. When Gu Mingming reached Sandy's cave, Elvis quietly stopped a distance away from the cave and handed the pot and Gu Mingming over to Leah. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked, "Leader, aren't you going with me?" Elvis smiled and patted Gu Mingming's little head, replying, "Although I am the leader of Saint Nazir, I still have to abide by the rules of territorial division." Gu Mingming then remembered that even if they were from the same tribe, they still had the concept of territorial division. So she turned back to look at Leah, saying, "Then is it not convenient for you to go in too? Why don't you two wait here for me? I will go in and call Sandy out, then we can go somewhere else to cook." Leah smiled elegantly, "I am a witch doctor, I am not restricted by territorial restrictions. Moreover, Adali's injuries look quite serious, I can go over and take a look at him." Adali? Gu Mingming was stunned for 3 seconds. She thought for a while before recalling that it was one of Sandy's partners. Because Sandy defended her, he got into an argument with Nina and was severely injured by Nina's partner. Yes, no matter what, he was injured because of me, I should show my condolences." As Gu Mingming said that, she wanted to jump out of the pot and run towards Sandy's cave. But the moment her feet touched the ground, Leah grabbed onto her arm. With just a little force, Gu Mingming fell backwards into Lee's arms. Looking up at Leah, who was hugging her with one hand, Gu Mingming felt as if she could see countless pink bubbles surrounding them. So when the male and female leads suddenly hugged each other in idol dramas, that rotating slow-motion scene and accompaniment really existed. Adali was injured because of Sandy, not you. You don't have to care too much about him because I will be jealous. Gu Mingming nodded her head in confusion. She felt a tinge of sweetness in her heart, and the only thought in her mind was, perhaps dating in the beast world is not bad, if the other party is Leah. Leah seemed to have seen something in Gu Mingming's eyes. He could not explain it clearly, but it made his mood extremely good. He liked the way Gu Mingming looked at him as if she belonged to him. Leah carried the stone pot with one hand and hugged Gu Mingming with the other. This setup of a village woman did not diminish his demonic and fairy-like aura at all. Perhaps it was because of his occupation. The stone pot in his hands was like a magical instrument used for sacrificial rituals and not a cooking tool. Before Leah reached the entrance of Sandy's cave, Sandy had already come out to welcome him. She did not look too good, and when she saw Gu Mingming, she forced a smile and greeted, "Gu Mingming, you're here." Gu Mingming could not bear to see Sandy suffer, so she hurriedly jumped down from Lee's arms and pounced towards Sandy. In her heart, she gave herself a big thumbs up for not choosing a lover over a friend. "What's wrong? Did you not eat your fill just now? I just brought some new tools over, let's cook something to eat together, alright?" Sandy looked at the things in Lee's hands that she had never seen before. As a foodie, this was the first time she was not interested in eating. She just pulled Gu Mingming's hand and said, "Can you help me request Leah to take a look at Adali again? He's very badly injured." Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's little darling Xiao Rui Nina, for the flowers. Reply to QQ Reader Blue Sky Ancient Rhyme, for the main text of this article. Babies who cannot accept the NPC plot, do not join the reader group and just read the main text here. You can also communicate with Jean by leaving a message on QQ Reader or Xiaoxiang Academy's works. Jean will read all the messages. Babies who want to see the NPC plot, please join the QQ group to read the content sent in the form of an extra. Chapter 134. Daddy Leah, let's go in and take a look. Gu Mingming held onto Sandy's little hand and turned to plead with Leah. Leah rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, "As you wish." "That's great, thank you, Gu Mingming." Sandy heaved a sigh of relief and a smile appeared on her face. Gu Mingming and Sandy walked into the cave side by side, with Leah following behind them. The moment she entered the cave, Gu Mingming smelled a strong stench of blood. She frowned and felt as if something was rolling in her stomach. The bloody scene from the coming-of-age ceremony replayed in her mind. Gu Mingming shuddered and a chill ran down her spine, causing her hair to stand on end. "Gu Mingming, what's wrong?" Sandy held onto Gu Mingming's hand and was the first to notice her abnormality. Leah carried Gu Mingming with one arm and used his large tail to wrap around her tiny body. He comforted her gently, "Don't worry, Gu Mingming, I'm here." Lee's furry tail and the warmth in his arms successfully soothed Gu Mingming's uneasiness. She wrapped her little arms around Lee's neck and nodded at his long and affectionate eyes. Then she buried her little head into Lee's neck and used his unique scent to disperse the blood stench in her nose. Feeling Lee's body temperature, Gu Mingming's emotions slowly relaxed. Seeing that Gu Mingming had regained her composure, Leah said to Sandy, "Ask your partners to carry Adali out, the smell here is too horrible, I can't stand it." With that, Leah carried Gu Mingming out of the cave. Seeing the sunlight, Gu Mingming's mood finally calmed down. She looked at Sandy in embarrassment, feeling as if she was visiting a patient in the hospital and telling the patient, "I'm here to visit you, but the smell of the hospital is too strong, I don't like it, so come to the coffee shop outside the hospital and let me visit you." More importantly, the person being visited was obviously seriously injured and couldn't move on his own. However, this was the beast world and the witch doctor in the tribe had extremely high prestige. Only females would be able to receive the full attention of the witch doctor. Males would usually not need the witch doctor's attention. Minor injuries don't need to be taken care of. They'll heal in 2 or 3 days. Serious injury. Hey, is there a need to waste medicinal herbs to treat it? Especially someone like Adri who had lost in a fight. How could he have the face to ask the witch doctor for treatment? But now, on account of Gu Mingming, not only did Leah treat him, he even came to treat him. Now he was just asking him to come out of the cave. How was that making things difficult for him? When Bode and Sandy's other partner carried Adali out, Gu Mingming then realized that Adali was seriously injured. The wound on his abdomen was flipped outwards and the blood around the wound had coagulated into a sticky state. His internal organs could be vaguely seen through the wound. His face was as pale as a sheet, and fine beads of sweat covered his entire body. If he was in the modern world, he would definitely be sent to the emergency room. But now he was being carried out by Bode and Sandy's other partner, one by his arms and the other by his legs, like a suckling pig. Gu Mingming shuddered and said, "Oh my god, the way you two are carrying him is tearing the wound open again. Quick, find a flat and clean place to put him down." Bode's face darkened. This Gu Mingming really did not regard him as an outsider, ordering him around so easily. And as her first partner, he was not as important as Gu Mingming, whom he had only known for 2 to 3 days. Sigh, this was all fate. Aside from the topic, my babies, let me say something more. Tomorrow, QQ reading will be going up for PK. All my babies with a QQ reading ID, please give your recommendation tickets to our Gu Mingming tomorrow. It's the free recommendation ticket. One has not been published yet, so the monthly ticket cannot be used. Jeaner is now working hard to save up her chapters, hoping that she can update more chapters for everyone. But I might not be able to reply to everyone's messages in time, because I am making the best use of my time to write as many chapters as possible for everyone to see. If this PK is over, I heard that there will be a second round of PK. Then it will be another round of explosive updates. Chapter 135. Sandy asked one of his mates to take out a clean hide from the cave and lay it on the ground. Bode and another male placed Adri on the hide. Leah placed the stone pot at the side and used his large tail to wrap Gu Mingming behind him to protect her. He then squatted down to check on Adri's injuries. Gu Mingming knew that Leah was protecting her because he knew she was afraid of the smell of blood. She felt warmth in her heart, but she was still worried about Adali. After all, he was a beast and Sandy's partner. Although Leah said that Adri's injury had nothing to do with her, Gu Mingming still felt guilty. So for the first time, she resisted the temptation of her big tail and climbed onto Lee's back. She lay on Lee's shoulder and peeked out her little head to examine Adali's wound with Leah. "If we just leave it like this, it will definitely be infected." Gu Mingming muttered softly. Leah tilted his head and asked Gu Mingming, "Then what do you think we should do?" Although Gu Mingming kept saying that what happened to Barit was just common sense and could not be considered as reviving the dead, but to Leah and everyone else, it was already a miraculous feat. Gu Mingming's extreme general knowledge was enough to crush many witch doctors in the beast world. So Leah still valued Gu Mingming's opinion, taking 10,000 steps back even if Gu Mingming was just joking. So what? As long as Gu Mingming was happy, he would still listen to Gu Mingming's opinion and do as she said, much less Adali. As long as she was happy. Gu Mingming was very happy that Leah would listen to her seriously. This made her feel that she was very important. But if she really opened her mouth, she was afraid that she would be displaying her slight skill in front of Leah, the witch doctor. It would not be good if she gave the wrong information and caused Adali's life to be in danger. Leah could tell that Gu Mingming was doubtful, so he used his large tail to gently sweep her back and comforted her. "It's all right, just say what you think. I'll decide whether it's feasible or not." Gu Mingming then relaxed and nodded. "For this kind of injury, we will first disinfect the wound and reduce the inflammation before stitching it up to prevent infection. But there's no alcohol or needles? Tell me what it is. I'll make it for you." Leah thought that the pot could be replaced by something else just like the pot. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Wine can be brewed using fermented grains, but it is definitely not something that can be done in 1 or 2 days. Sewing needles? As Gu Mingming spoke, she suddenly saw the huge pile of fish at the entrance of Sandy's cave. Those should be the ingredients that Bode originally wanted to practice roasting fish with. Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. She pointed at the largest one and said, "The suture needle can be replaced by fish bones." Without waiting for Gu Mingming to say anything, Bode had already carried the biggest fish over. "Yep, if I don't want to be ordered around by a female other than Sandy, the best way is to get things done before she opens her mouth." In this way he would be doing it on his own initiative and not being ordered around by other females. If Gu Mingming knew what Bode was thinking, she would definitely say, "Congratulations, you've learned how to answer first." It was a pity that Gu Mingming only cared about choosing a suitable bone from the fish bones and did not have the time to tease Bode. This is good. After searching for a long time, Gu Mingming finally found a fish bone with a suitable thickness and curved angle. She handed it to Leah and said, "Daddy Leah, make a small hole at this position but don't damage the other parts, is that alright?" Aside from the topic, on the first day of PK, please leave more comments, it's best if it's related to the plot. Those who have tickets, please hand over your tickets. Those who don't have tickets, please hand over your tickets tomorrow. Those who haven't bookmarked it, please click to bookmark it. Those who have bookmarked it, please keep it. Those who want to reward Jean Eyre and Gu Mingming, you can start your performance now. Chapter 136. Leah looked at the fish bone in Gu Mingming's hand and used the most precise control of his fingernails to carve a tiny hole in the shape of a rice grain at the spot Gu Mingming pointed at. Gu Mingming looked at it again and again before nodding her head in satisfaction. Yes, just like this. With the needle, Gu Mingming lowered her head and looked around. She saw the stone pot that Leah had placed at the side and said to Sandy, "Sandy, ask your partner to start a fire and find 3 tree trunks as thick as this one and some sturdier tree vines." "Alright, I need Elvis's help. Can he come over too?" Sandy replied, "Of course." After getting Sandy's permission, Gu Mingming turned to Elvis and shouted, "Leader, you can come over now." Sandy has agreed. Actually, with Elvis's hearing, Gu Mingming really did not need to shout like that because he had already heard their conversation just now. However, it felt different to be called over by Gu Mingming. Elvis walked in front of Gu Mingming and asked, "What can I do for you?" Gu Mingming replied, "I remember there were many animal organs thrown at the stream just now. Leader, can you help me ask if anyone still wants those organs? If they don't want them, then help me take one of the intestines back. If they still want it, I'll go get it for you." Elvis interrupted Gu Mingming. What a joke. Would anyone dare to not give what his Xiaoming wanted? Gu Mingming nodded. She suddenly thought of something and pulled Elvis, who was about to leave. She turned to Sandy and asked, "What is your Adali's original form?" Sandy replied, "He's the same as me. He's from the bear tribe." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Leader, I remember a few people ate bear's intestines just now. Can you see if there are any bear intestines left? If you have a choice, take a bear's intestine." Elvis did not ask why and just nodded his head in agreement. He then kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and turned to walk towards the stream. Leah was a little jealous and said, "Everyone has something to do, but I'm the only one with nothing to do?" Gu Mingming laughed and said, "You're the chief surgeon today. Your hands are going to be operated on later. How can you do other chores? If he injures his hand, who's going to suture Adali later?" Me. Leah was a little surprised. "Of course it's you. If it wasn't you, would it be me?" Gu Mingming looked at Lee's barely visible nod and smiled bitterly. "I only have theoretical knowledge and lack practical experience. Besides, I'm a coward, I don't dare to make a move." Leah used his large tail to encircle Gu Mingming back into his arms. He swayed his tail from time to time and said, "Alright, I will listen to Gu Mingming. I'll do whatever Mingming asks me to do." What a glib tongue. Gu Mingming chided with a smile, but she was not angry. Instead, she felt ripples in her heart. Bode and the other 2 males brought the tree branches that Gu Mingming wanted in a short while and started a fire. Gu Mingming instructed Bode to tie the 3 thick tree branches together with tree vines at an angle of about 120 degrees. The 3 tree branches were evenly distributed and became a simple frame. Gu Mingming used the tree vines to hang the stone pot up. She originally wanted to hang it above the fire to boil a pot of water to disinfect Adali. Unfortunately, she miscalculated the weight of the stone pot. The moment she hung it up, the tree vines snapped with a clang. The stone pot really fell down and smashed into the fire, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Aside from the topic, a few days ago, a reader suggested to me to let Sandy give birth to a son named Winnie. I thought about it for a while. Yeah, that's good. It obviously solved the problem of my name being useless. So among Sandy's 6 partners, I arranged a bear tribe. Chapter 137. Li's reaction was extremely fast. He scooped Gu Mingming back and locked her in his arms. He turned around and used his back to block all the sparks. Gu Mingming was indeed shocked. She shrunk into Li's arms and did not dare to move. After a long while, she stretched her neck out to take a look. But the moment she moved, she heard Leah say, "Mingming." Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. She lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. But she lifted her eyes to peek at Li's expression. As expected, Leah could not even maintain his smile. He held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and adjusted to her height. He stared straight into her eyes and said, "Do you know how scared I was just now? If you were hurt even a little, it would be more painful than having my heart gouged out." Gu Mingming pursed her lips and said, "I didn't know that pot was so heavy, huh?" Leah did not buy it. He was unusually stern and did not leave any room for negotiation. "I know my mistake." Gu Mingming lowered her head and maintained a good attitude. "What did you do wrong?" Leah did not intend to let her off just like that. This little female, if he did not teach her a lesson, she would really dare to do anything. "That branch is too thin. I should have asked Bode and the rest to find a thick one from the start. Oh, that's right, we should not have set up a pot. We should have built a stove so that it would not fall." The more Gu Mingming said, the more she felt that it made sense. She nodded and said, Yes, we should have built a stove." Gu Mingming. Leah was really furious. What was this little female thinking in her head? Couldn't she just leave this matter to the males to think of a solution? That pot was so heavy. If it had landed on her, the consequences would be unimaginable. But she was still thinking about building a stove. Did she not know that she almost lost her life just now? "Oh, fire. Daddy Leah, don't be angry. I really know my mistake. I will never carry a stone pot again." Gu Mingming tried to please him. "What else?" Leah finally calmed down after getting her assurance. Gu Mingming blinked her big eyes and tilted her head to look at Leah in confusion. Leah was so angry that he clenched his teeth. He really wanted to pry open her little head and see what kind of weird things were inside. Unfortunately, the hand that was raised high did not bear to hurt her at all. It only touched her eyebrows and said, "You have to get used to relying on me. In the future, let me do whatever you need me to do. Don't put yourself in danger and make me worry. Do you hear me?" "Oh, Daddy Leah is right. I will listen to Daddy Leah." Gu Mingming hugged Li's arm and shook it with all her might, acting like a spoiled child. "Daddy Leah, don't be angry. I will treat myself as a severely handicapped person in the future, the kind that can't take care of myself and ask you to do everything." "That's a good boy." Leah loved it when Gu Mingming acted coquettishly and shamelessly in front of him. He did not know why, but he felt that the left side of his chest was filled to the brim. That sense of fullness made him feel as if he was sitting on the clouds, floating so fast that it didn't seem real. "But will you annoy me? What if Daddy Leah hates me?" Gu Mingming pouted and asked. "If you are worried that I will have a change of heart, why don't you settle on me as soon as possible? When your estrus is over, we will mate. This way I will be yours for life. If I have a change of heart, the beast deity will take my life for you. How about that?" Aside from the topic, OOPK is so nerve-wracking. Babies, have you voted yet? Chapter 138. When Elvis came back with 2 pieces of bear intestines, Sandy had already asked Bode and the rest to build a stove and boil water. Elvis was a little surprised at the matter of boiling water, but the smell of the thing in his hands was too strong, so he did not dare to get close to Gu Mingming. He just stood at a distance and asked, "Xiaoming, do you still want this?" Gu Mingming turned around and saw Elvis carrying a piece of intestine that was as thick as her arm. It was bloody and dripping with yellow liquid, and the stench almost made Gu Mingming vomit. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. But thinking of the heavily injured Adali, she clenched her teeth and said, "Yes, this is very important." Elvis's sense of smell was much more sensitive than Gu Mingming's. The smell of the intestines almost suffocated him. But because it was what Gu Mingming wanted, he carried it along the way and did not throw it away. But Elvis was not willing to pass this smelly thing to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming also did not have the intention to wash it herself. She was kind, but not to the extent of being a saint. Hence, he turned around and said to Bode, "Bode, go and wash that bear's intestines for me. Clean them inside and out." Bode slammed the table and said, "Why me again?" Gu Mingming spread her hands and said, "Because I can only remember your name." Bode thought to himself, "What the F***K? But he was helpless, Gu Mingming had a strong backing and he could not afford to offend her. Not to mention Elvis and Leah, who were already emitting a strong aura. Just Sandy's unhappy gaze was enough to send a chill down Bode's spine. Resigned to his fate, he pinched his nose and walked to Elvis. He took over the bare intestines from his hands bitterly and transformed into a leopard to fly downstream to wash this stupid thing. Elvis looked at his own hands and said, "I'm going out for a while, I'll be back in a while." "All right." Gu Mingming knew that Elvis had a sharp nose. The smell that was still lingering on his hands must have made him break down. He must be going to wash his hands. Sandy moved closer to Gu Mingming and smiled meaningfully. "Gu Mingming is really the #1 beauty of Saint Nazaire. Even Elvis is used to reporting to you, he even needs your approval to wash his hands." Gu Mingming did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You're thinking the wrong way. Leader is just more of a gentleman." Sandy nodded perfunctorily and asked, "Then what do we do next?" Gu Mingming used mud to extinguish the fire and waited for the water to cool to a suitable temperature before asking Sandy's partner to help carry him to Adali's side. She used a small leaf to scoop some water to clean Adali's wounds, then scooped some water to carefully help Leah wash his hands. When the green-faced Bode returned, he washed the bare intestines again with warm water and made Leah use his fingernails to tear the bare intestines into thin strips that could barely pass through the fishbone needles. When everything was ready, Gu Mingming handed the fishbone needle to Leah. "Daddy Leah, I'll leave the rest to you." Leah took over the fishbone needle but only stared straight at Gu Mingming. He had no intention to proceed to the next step. Gu Mingming thought that Leah did not know what to do, so she guided him again. "Daddy Leah, don't be nervous. Just sew up the two sides of the wound and don't let the wound open like this. I believe in you, you can definitely do it. Do your best." But Leah twitched his mouth. "My hands will be dirty if I do that." Gu Mingming nodded. "It will definitely be stained with blood. You just have to wash it." Leah said, "But you're the one who washed my hands. How can I dirty them for other males?" Gu Mingming, aside from the topic. Chapter 139. Under Gu Mingming's repeated coaxing and guarantee that after Leah was done with Adali's wound, Gu Mingming would kiss him and wash his hands clean. Only then did Leah reluctantly start stitching Adali's wound. She had to admit that Leah was really awesome in some professional fields. The tenacity of the raw gut suture was not good, but he was able to stitch up Adali's wound with ingenious angles and strength without any experience. Adri was a real man. Without anesthesia, he didn't even let out a groan. He clenched his teeth and stared at Sandy, as if there was nothing he couldn't endure as long as he could see Sandy. The entire process only took about 3 minutes. When Leah placed the last stitch perfectly, Gu Mingming's heart finally relaxed. To be honest, Gu Mingming felt her heart ache just by looking at him. But he was her best friend's man after all. She still had to avoid arousing suspicion. So Gu Mingming told Sandy, "Hurry and go take a look at Adali. I will go with Leah to the stream to wash my hands and come back later." "All right." Sandy did not know how to take care of an injured person, so she just followed Gu Mingming's instructions and sat beside Adali. She stared at Adali, who was forcing himself to smile, and gently wiped the sweat off his face. Leah transformed into a snow fox and carried Gu Mingming on his back. They came to the upstream of the stream and without a word, they directly rushed into the water. Plop plop plop, Gu Mingming and Leah fell into the water separately. Gu Mingming stood up with a chuckle and wiped the water off her face. She saw Leah standing in the water completely naked. The stream's water barely reached his waistline and the 2 mermaid lines were faintly discernible, causing one's imagination to run wild. His broad shoulders and narrow waist were graceful. He was not as muscular as Elvis and did not look as strong and powerful as Elvis, making others not dare to underestimate him. However, he had a sense of strong and healthy beauty. His skin was translucent and fair like jade, but did not have a hint of femininity. Gu Mingming could always sense a demonic or immortal aura from him, but she had never confused his gender. His silver-white long hair was casually draped behind him, glistening with a watery light due to the stream. Under the refraction of the sunlight, there seemed to be a rainbow halo. F******. Daddy Leah was too much of a foul. I really want to pounce. What should I do? Leah stood at his original spot, his eyes filled with unparalleled charm. He raised his slender and bony hands from the water, creating countless ripples. With his palm facing upwards, his fingers naturally curved inwards while his index finger extended forward. Then he hooked it lightly and called out in a hoarse voice, "Ming, come over and help me wash." Puff, Gu Mingming could only feel something flowing out from her nose. It was sweet and hot. Gu Mingming touched it with the back of her hand. Damn, it was bleeding again. Li's reaction was even faster than Gu Mingming's. The water did not seem to pose any resistance to him as he glided to Gu Mingming's front. He wrapped one arm around Gu Mingming's waist and the other gently lifted her little chin to tilt her head up. He frowned and his gaze was filled with heartache. His crimson thin lips slowly moved downwards, pressing against Gu Mingming's lips. Thump, thump. Gu Mingming felt that her heart was about to jump out and her nose was bleeding more and more profusely. First kiss? Was it going to be sacrificed here? Under such a situation where her nose was bleeding all over? Other people's first kiss was very romantic. Why was her first kiss so pathetic? But why was there a vague sense of anticipation in her heart? Aside from the topic, in reply to QQ Reader, love is like a song, the string breaks and the person scatters. Thank you baby for your suggestion, I will try my best to speed up the pace. As for feelings, you said that it was too cruel to treat the orcs with the modern concept of love. This point cannot be denied. But baby, please think about our Gu Mingming. After all, she had just transmigrated a few days ago. It would be too difficult for her to accept the settings of the venerable female of the beast world, polygamy and having to get married immediately after her period. She had to go through an adaptation process. Using an old saying, the most generous love is to give you time. If a man is not even willing to spend some time on you, what right does he have to say that he loves you? Chapter 140. Just as Gu Mingming was about to close her eyes, Leah stuck out his pink tongue and licked Gu Mingming's nose lightly. That crimson blood was like cinnabar on his lips, making him look extremely seductive. Leah used his index finger to wipe the blood from Gu Mingming's nose into his mouth, then looked at Gu Mingming with misty eyes and said, "Just as I thought, you are very delicious." Gu Mingming quivered and woke up from the crimson romantic bubbles. She pouted and asked, "Daddy Leah, don't tell me you want to eat me up?" Leah said thoughtfully, "That's a good suggestion." Gu Mingming looked up and whimpered, "Daddy Leah, please don't eat me." However, Leah smiled and licked her little nose again. This time, his movements were delicate and slow. Gu Mingming's entire attention was focused on the tip of her nose. She could clearly feel every minute movement of Lee's, and even clearly saw him sucking on her little nose at the end. Licking his lips with his red tongue, Lee's bewitching face stopped inches away from Gu Mingming. Lee's thumb caressed Gu Mingming's lips, his long and narrow eyes were filled with unconcealed desire. "Be my partner or food, which would you choose?" Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with desire. I don't choose either," Gu Mingming said as she started to struggle. But her little strength was not worth mentioning in front of Leah. Leah held onto Gu Mingming's waist with one hand and supported the back of her head with the other, fixing her firmly in his arms. That seductive face slowly moved to Gu Mingming's ear and he whispered in her ear in an intimate tone, "Why don't I choose for you?" Lee's warm breath sprayed onto Gu Mingming's ear and she felt her heart palpitate. Damn, she was concerned about her life and death and she was actually feeling amorous. No. Gu Mingming stuttered as she rejected. But Leah did not have any intention of letting go of her. Instead, he lowered his body slightly and both of their bodies sank into the stream. Unknowingly, Leah had already carried Gu Mingming to a very deep position. The water did not even reach Lee's chest and Gu Mingming's feet could not reach the ground at all. In order not to choke, Gu Mingming could only wrap her arms tightly around Lee's neck and whimper. Leah looked at Gu Mingming who was in his arms and said seductively, "It's all right, it won't hurt. I will eat you up so that we can fuse together and never be separated again." Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. "What? Daddy Leah, don't do this, don't. Gu Mingming struggled with all her might but it was useless. Seeing Leah revealing his sharp teeth and slowly approaching Gu Mingming's slender, snow-white neck, Gu Mingming was so scared that her face turned pale and she even forgot how to cry. Was he going to die in Daddy Lee's mouth? The play ends here? Did that beast deity bring me here from the swimming pool just to add food for Daddy Leah? Sob, I must have a fake father. Gu Mingming's imagination was running wild when she felt a warm sensation on her neck. It was wet and slightly painful but it did not feel like the pain of being pierced by teeth. This feeling was a little weird. Gu Mingming tried her best to use the corner of her eyes to look at Leah who was lying on her neck and called out, "Daddy? Leah?" Aside from the topic, babes, remember to vote for me every day. Leah held the back of Gu Mingming's head gently and kissed her forehead. Then he replied, "As long as it's something you like, I'm willing to learn." Even if I have to destroy myself and become someone else's shadow in your eyes. I'm willing. Her heart was stabbed harshly. Gu Mingming was filled with guilt for her complaints just now. One of her hands was pressed against his chest by Leah and had not released it. Gu Mingming just went with the flow and laid on Li's chest. She pressed the side of her face against his bare chest and listened to his strong heartbeat. Once, twice, mating was too heavy a burden. Gu Mingming knew that she could not make such a promise. But maybe dating would not be bad. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xian Bao and Qin Xiaoyu for your tips. I have truly received all of your encouragement. Also, I don't want to waste time explaining which is better between NPCs and 1v1. Everyone has different views on love and values. We don't have to force everyone to agree with us, right? In order to not cause more misunderstandings, I won't reply to NPCs and 1v1 messages anymore. Chapter 142. Confess. Gu Mingming said softly with a blushing face. The corners of Li's lips curled upwards slightly. Something in his heart seemed to have calmed down and spread throughout his entire body. Leah changed his posture and used his forearm to support Gu Mingming's but, hugging her like he was carrying a child. Using his other hand to lift her chin, he looked at Gu Mingming with eyes that could drown a person to death and said, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that I will pledge my loyalty to you for the rest of my life. From today onwards, you are my God, my life, my everything." Gu Mingming's face was burning hot and she felt all the blood in her body rushing to her head. Pursing her lips that were dry from the heat, Gu Mingming said hesitantly, "What I mean is, I can date you. I'm not ready to mate." Gu Mingming had already explained her views on love to Leah long ago and Leah remembered the dating process that Gu Mingming said to him. Leah was already very satisfied to be able to transition from friend to lover in such a short time. He did not want to force Gu Mingming. No matter how badly he wanted to mate with Gu Mingming and become the rightful person by her side, he had to respect Gu Mingming's feelings first. How could his woman be wronged? "Tell me, what kind of relationship is it?" Leah approached Gu Mingming's lips slowly and stopped at a fingertip's distance. He asked in a slightly hoarse voice, "Is it a relationship where I can kiss you whenever I want to?" Gu Mingming knew very well what would happen if she nodded her head slightly. Her heart was beating wildly and she replied with a single sound in anticipation and shyness, "Yeah." Leah lifted her little chin and gently brought her lips into his mouth. This time, Li's tongue entered Gu Mingming's mouth nimbly, tasting the sweetness in her mouth wantonly and greedily. Until Gu Mingming was almost suffocating, Leah then released her reluctantly. Both of their gazes were in a daze and Leah could clearly feel the solid throbbing in his left chest. He knew very well what this familiar yet strange feeling meant. Leah could not explain it clearly, but he was once again certain that he could not let go of this female Gu Mingming in this lifetime. After all, it was almost winter and the stream water was still somewhat cold. Leah was afraid that Gu Mingming would catch a cold, so he did not stay in the water for too long. He did not know where he had lost the beast skin dress when he transformed and he was not in the mood to look for it, so he just carried Gu Mingming up to the shore. He knew clearly that Elvis had already caught up to them and he had clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into. In other words, Elvis must have seen everything just now. Leah and Elvis hoped that they could successfully separate Gu Mingming's feelings for him before Eugene arrived, or even directly replace him. They had the same idea and did not need to discuss it verbally. They had such a tacit understanding. This was also the reason why Elvis did not show himself even though he was already nearby. But this did not mean that Elvis could tolerate Leah threatening his status as the first partner, and Leah indeed did not have that intention. So Leah planned to carry Gu Mingming to Elvis's side. Firstly, he wanted to get some clean clothes for Gu Mingming to change into so that she would not catch a cold. Secondly, he wanted to take the opportunity to explain to Elvis. Out of topic. In the middle of PK, little babies, remember to vote for me in QQ Bookstore. Chapter 143. But Li's thought made Gu Mingming very conflicted. Damn it, Leah was naked. She did not feel anything when he was in the water just now, but now that she was out, the scene was too erotic and Gu Mingming's nosebleed was about to go out of control again. Daddy Leah. Gu Mingming hugged Li's neck and stopped Li's actions of going ashore. Leah stopped in his tracks and smiled dotingly. "You're still calling me Daddy Leah?" Gu Mingming was speechless. Damn it, calling her own boyfriend Daddy, why did she feel even more embarrassed than before? Between lovers, what kind of address should there be? Leah was clearly asking sincerely, but to Gu Mingming, it sounded like he was asking a question that he already knew the answer to. The blush on Gu Mingming's face did not subside at all. Holding back the surging emotions in her heart, Gu Mingming said shyly, Then what should I call you? Lele? Or Yaya? Leah heard it and obviously did not like it, so he shook his head and said, Just call me Daddy, it sounds much better. Gu Mingming deeply felt that Leah was purposely teasing her. But facing Lee's face, Gu Mingming could not bring herself to be angry. She just bashfully punched Lee's chest lightly. To show that she was angry, Gu Mingming directly called Lee's name, without any form of address. Leah, are you planning to go back like this? Gu Mingming's little eyes peeked downwards secretly. Since Leah was her boyfriend now, it should not be too much for her to take a look. Leah followed Gu Mingming's line of sight and looked down at his half-hidden body in the water. He asked with a sincere face, What's wrong? You will be seen by others like this. Gu Mingming felt that she had overestimated her psychological endurance. She dared to say anything when she was joking normally, but it was her first time seeing a real gun right in front of her. She only took a quick glance and quickly looked away. But even so, Gu Mingming still felt her heart jumping to her throat before she could see anything clearly. Leah thought for a while and tried to understand Gu Mingming's words. But he really could not figure out what the problem was. Wasn't everyone like this? Gu Mingming looked at the 3 words I don't understand, clearly written on Lee's face and instantly felt embarrassed. She thought to herself, does this beast deity not care about anything else besides whether a couple gets a divorce or not? You don't even bother with the least bit of weathering? But thinking was just thinking. Gu Mingming could not be bothered to complain about the beast deity's anti-image from the neighborhood committee. She was only thinking about her blue friend and could not let others see his nude picture. She thought for a moment and pretended to take off her clothes. As she slowly untied her belt, she said, My clothes are also covered in fish scales and it smells like hell. Now that it's wet, it's not comfortable to wear. I might as well take it off too. Then we can run back to Sandy's place naked and let the tribesmen see us naked. Leah, on the other hand, tapped Gu Mingming's little nose with a faint smile and said, Elvis is already waiting over there with clean clothes. With me and him releasing our aura together, even mosquitoes would not dare to come close. After you've changed your clothes, we'll go to Sandy's. That way we won't be seen naked. Chapter 144. As Leah said that, Elvis had already walked out from the shade of the tree. Gu Mingming was like a child who had done something wrong. She lowered her head and did not dare to look into Elvis's eyes. As for Elvis wanting to be her godmother, she already knew that it was a misunderstanding. But why did she not dare to face Elvis? Gu Mingming did not want to think too much and did not dare to think too much. She just lowered her head and twisted her fingers. You will get sick easily wearing wet clothes, change. Elvis reached out and took Gu Mingming from Lee's hands. He then said to Leah, transform into your original form before coming out. She doesn't want others to see you like this. Leah nodded and did not ask why. He transformed into a fox and lightly shook off the water on his body. His fur became fluffy and he did not look like a drowned rat at all. It was as if he had used a hairdryer to dry his hair in the blink of an eye. TSK, even the heavens would look at one's appearance. Gu Mingming thought about how long she usually had to dry her hair and deeply understood the favoritism of the heavens. However, her blue friend was really good looking. No matter if he was in human or beast form, he was so good looking that one could not take their eyes off him. Elvis carried Gu Mingming to a place that was sheltered from the wind and then started to remove her clothes. Gu Mingming crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, No need. I can change myself. Elvis's hand paused in midair and he stared at Gu Mingming with his deep gaze for a long time. Finally, he slowly lowered his hand and turned around indifferently, saying, I will guard you from the side. Call me if you need help. All right. Gu Mingming felt a tinge of guilt. She was the one who provoked Elvis without knowing the situation. Ever since they met by the lake, everything she did was enough to cause him to misunderstand. Although it was unintentional, now that she knew that the beast world's view on love was very different from hers, there was no reason for her to let Elvis continue to misunderstand. Moreover, since she had already decided to date Leah, she could not give Elvis that kind of illusory hope. So, Gu Mingming called out while changing her dress, Elvis, are you still there? I have always been here. Elvis replied. Gu Mingming said, Leah confessed to me and I agreed. Elvis remained silent for a long while before slowly replying, Gu Mingming said, where I come from, a female can only be with a male. Since I've agreed to date Leah, I won't have any other romantic partners. Elvis's voice was still indifferent as if he did not care but asked carefully, Then, what about you, Jean? Gu Mingming smiled helplessly and shook her head. Is this joke not over yet? Didn't I tell you that this is just a story and there is no such person? Even if there is, his female is called Kong Moyan and not Gu Mingming. Silence. Another long period of silence. Just when Gu Mingming almost thought that Elvis had left, Elvis finally asked, "Then, what about me?" This time, it was Gu Mingming's turn to be at a loss. Her hand that was fastening the shoulder strap suddenly stopped, not knowing how to answer this question. Time seemed to have stopped and Gu Mingming's mind kept repeating Elvis's sentence. What about me? This was a simple question made up of 3 words, but she did not know how to answer. Elvis turned around and walked over from behind the rock. He took over the little shoulder strap from Gu Mingming's hands and fastened it for her. He said while fastening it, "You are now in Saint Nazaire, you just need to follow the rules here." Gu Mingming still did not say a word. She just looked up at Elvis's backlit face. Chapter 145. Elvis didn't wait for Gu Mingming's reply and just carried the neatly dressed Gu Mingming into his arms with one hand while using the other to carry her old clothes. These were supposed to be thrown away, but she said she wanted to wash them before using them and he agreed to it. Leah transformed into a snow fox as promised and waited for them not far away. He heard the conversation between Gu Mingming and Elvis. It was undeniable that he felt a sense of beauty in his heart. The only one, such an unattainable word, yet Gu Mingming said she wanted to give it to him? In this beast world, which male could resist such a temptation? However, Leah was very clear that he could not protect Gu Mingming by himself. When Gu Mingming's identity was exposed one day, the beast world would definitely be in chaos. By then, how could he protect her while facing the enemies? But even if it could not be realized, Leah felt that it was enough with Gu Mingming's words. Let Leah carry me. Gu Mingming felt a little awkward. She did not know how to face Elvis now. Elvis's spine obviously stiffened, but he did not say anything and just placed Gu Mingming on Lee's back. Then he said, "You guys go to Sandy's place first. I will go back and dig a cave for Xiaoming to store her old clothes. I will go and fetch you guys later." Leah replied to Elvis using beast language, but Gu Mingming naturally did not understand. But Elvis just smiled bitterly and nodded before turning to leave. When Leah and Gu Mingming returned to Sandy's cave, Adali actually woke up miraculously. His wounds had not healed, but he looked much better. Unless it was the final radiance of a setting sun, he would definitely not die like this. Sandy saw Gu Mingming returning and immediately went up to her. She held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "Gu Mingming, you are too magical. Look, Adali looks much better now. At this rate he will be able to recover in no time." Gu Mingming smiled embarrassedly and said, "This is Lee's credit, I just moved my mouth." But Sandy did not think so. She looked at Leah, who went to ask Bode for a piece of beast skin to wrap around his waist after putting Gu Mingming down. She lowered her voice and said, "Leah has never treated an injury like this before, this is obviously your idea. So, Adri's survival is all thanks to you." Mimicking Sandy, Gu Mingming lowered her voice and asked in a breathless voice, "Why are we speaking in such a soft voice?" Sandy gave Gu Mingming a "you're so stupid" look and said, "If Leah hears this, I'm dead meat." Gu Mingming said helplessly, "He can still hear you like this." Sandy paused and looked at Leah in fear. She bit her lower lip and could not say a word. Then she suddenly pulled Gu Mingming over and said, "Gu Mingming, tell Leah not to be angry." Gu Mingming laughed out loud. "My Leah is not so petty." Sandy and Leah were stunned. "My Leah?" These 4 words were clearly enough to quell any of Lee's anger. Moreover, since Sandy was Gu Mingming's good friend, Leah would definitely not hold it against her. Just like how no matter how Gu Mingming ordered Bode around, he would not flare up at Gu Mingming no matter how unwilling he was. Just like how Leah was inwardly coquettish, Sandy could not hold it in any longer. She raised her voice and asked in surprise, "Gu Mingming, you mean you are going to mate with Leah, right? This way you will always stay in Saint Nazaire. Even if Yu Sijin comes to look for you, you will not leave with him, right?" Aside from the topic, babies, it's hard to say about the stockpiling of chapters. Although I have been working hard, I can't release a lot of chapters every day. So, from the 5th to the 7th, I will release more chapters than the editor requested and maintain a rhythm of 5 chapters every day. Tomorrow, which is the last day of the PK, on the 8th, I will release all the chapters that I have saved up these few days. It can be considered as a small climax for me to release more chapters. As for how many chapters one can release, I am not sure. Anyway, let's all look forward to it. The last thing I want to say is, there will only be the next PK after this one. If you still want to see Gina release chapters before it is published, please try to support him in these 2 days. Chapter 146. Gu Mingming really did not want to continue the topic of Jin anymore. She glanced at a dolly who was lying at the side. His complexion seemed to have improved a lot. Gu Mingming could not help but admire the abnormal recovery ability of the males in the beast world once again. Did he just need to take a bath and he was already out of danger? But he was someone else's male after all. It would cause misunderstandings if she was too concerned about him. Moreover, Gu Mingming blushed and her eyes unknowingly looked at Leah, making eye contact with his long and charming eyes. Gu Mingming smiled and retracted her gaze, but her heart was filled with sweetness. Holding Sandy's hand, Gu Mingming replied, not leaving, I can't bear to leave my precious Sandy. Sandy hugged Gu Mingming's waist and rubbed her face against her chest. Her furry ears tickled Gu Mingming's chin and she could not stop giggling. Alright, I think you were not full just now. I brought the pot over to add more food for you. Really? Adali's condition had stabilized and Sandy's gluttonous nature was revealed once again. Gu Mingming pointed at the stone pot and said, look, I brought the ingredients to eat, how can it be fake? Sandy nodded her head hurriedly and her eyes lit up as she looked at the stone pot. Forgive Sandy for not having seen the world, but in her eyes, this pot had already been bestowed with the light of a divine weapon. Gu Mingming was very agile and did not show any mercy when commanding Bode. She handed over the tasks of gathering firewood and boiling water to Bode while she squatted at the side to deal with the fish. As they were going to roast it for Sandy, Bode had already cleaned the fish's scales and innards. What Gu Mingming needed to do now was to use a sharp small stone to cut the fish into a few large pieces. Then she smashed the ginger Leah gave her and tried to cut it open. When the water in the pot was boiling, Gu Mingming handed the entire fish bone and head to Bode and let him keep stirring while she sat at the side to chat with Sandy. What about me? What should I do? Leah came forward, seemingly unhappy that Gu Mingming had thrown him aside the moment she saw Sandy. How could Gu Mingming ignore him? That pair of big eyes had glanced at him countless times. It was just that they were too shy to be too intimate with each other because there were others around. But since Leah had taken the initiative to send himself to her doorstep, wouldn't it be too unromantic if she didn't get used to it? With that thought, Gu Mingming leaned into Lee's arms and leaned against his chest saying, of course you're accompanying me. Leah smiled faintly, his gaze gentle. All right. Leah took the initiative to summon his large tail and wrapped it around Gu Mingming. He did not seem to mind that his tail had become Gu Mingming's moving sofa. He only knew that his Mingming was in heat. The ground was so cold he definitely could not let her sit on the ground. Gu Mingming had always been fond of Lee's tail and now it was even more justifiable for her to rub it up. If she did not do it now, when would she do it? No matter how slow Sandy was, she could sense the subtle change in the atmosphere between Gu Mingming and Leah. She finally felt relieved this way. Gu Mingming would stay in Saint Nazaire forever, right? They could stay friends forever, right? Chapter 147. When Bode's fish soup was almost done, Gu Mingming then placed the sliced ginger into the pot and waited for the pot to boil before placing the fish meat in to cook. Actually, the food cooked with only ginger and fish was similar to a postpartum meal and could not be considered as a delicacy. The main reason why Gu Mingming's cooking was so popular was because the structure of the delicacies here was too monotonous and lacking. As a result, the fish soup that had been cooked for about 2 hours was so fragrant that it attracted almost everyone in Saint Nazaire. But most of the males still abided by their territorial boundaries and did not step into Sandy's territory. But some females who did not have enough of courting death did not care about that. Nina and another female whose name Gu Mingming could not remember walked in together. Nina took the lead, walking with her head held high, as if she was strolling in her own backyard, while the other female followed behind her like a servant. The two of them walked in front of Gu Mingming, one in front and one at the back. Nina had suffered a few times in Gu Mingming's hands and the wound on her neck was still hurting. She looked around and when she realized that Elvis was not around, her heart calmed down a little. Then she cleared her throat and pointed at Sandy's pot, asking, "Hey lowly half-orc female, what are you doing?" Sandy stood up uneasily and replied while clasping her hands, "No, it's not me, it's Gu Mingming who is cooking." Gu Mingming knew that Sandy was used to being bullied by Nina, so she was quite surprised that she would go against Nina for her. Why would Gu Mingming not protect a friend who did not back down even though she was clearly afraid for her? So, she straightened her back and stood up from Lee's arms, her hand naturally hooking onto Sandy's arm. As she was not as tall as Sandy, Gu Mingming looked like a little bird beside Sandy, just that this little bird was a little domineering. Even before she opened her mouth, Nina's legs had already turned to jelly. Gu Mingming sneered in disdain and said, "Why? Are you here to apologize to a dolly?" "Apologize?" Nina's sharp voice pierced Gu Mingming's eardrums. Gu Mingming dug her ears with her little finger and asked unhappily, "Why, you beat me up and you treat it as if nothing happened? You swaggered over here because you're afraid that I won't be able to find your doorstep for revenge?" Nina was afraid of being beaten up by Gu Mingming, and Elvis had used his actions today to clearly tell her. If she provoked Gu Mingming, he would kill her. Because he was afraid, his aura became weaker. However, Nina had been the first beauty of Saint Nazir for a long time and had been pampered to the point that it had become her instinct. The arrogance that was ingrained in her bones had caused her to have an unwise understanding of herself. She thought if Elvis was not around. Thus, he mustered up his courage and retorted, "Fights between males have always resulted in either death or injury. How can we blame others? He's useless and can't beat my male. Why should I apologize?" Well, as Gu Mingming said, she started rolling up her sleeves. Nina had seen this posture twice and instinctively knew that Gu Mingming was going to hit her again. He was so frightened that he took 2 big steps back, staring at Gu Mingming cautiously. Gu Mingming did not care about her. She pointed at Nina's nose and said, "Since you sent yourself to me, if I don't beat you up today, I would be letting you down." Aside from the topic, some people said that they did not like Sandy's character and that she was too weak. But putting herself in her shoes, she had been bullied since she was an adult. How could it be easy for her to retaliate after such a long time? But it was precisely this weak character that she did not give in when Nina scolded Gu Mingming. So, Sandy was just a soft and cute girl. We can't expect her to be like Gu Mingming, right? Gu Mingming, authorine, come over here and make it clear, what's the difference between you and me? Chapter 148. Gu Mingming was about to rush to Nina again but was lifted up by her waist. Gu Mingming instinctively thought that Elvis was lifting her again. She turned around and was about to complain when she saw Li's smiling handsome face. Gu Mingming said, "Leah, why are you lifting me too?" Leah, on the other hand, poked her little nose in rebuke. He watched as she moved back and forth in his hands like a cub, hugging onto his hand indignantly as if she wanted to bite him but was reluctant to use any strength. He asked, "What did you promise me again?" Gu Mingming blinked her big eyes and shook her head honestly, completely forgetting what she had said just a moment ago. Leah pointed at the stone pot that was boiling water and raised his eyebrows while looking at Gu Mingming with squinted eyes, as if he was considering how to punish this little rascal who forgot everything after she said it. Gu Mingming followed Li's hand and looked at the stone pot. After thinking for a long time, she finally remembered that she had casually promised Leah when the stone pot fell just now, something like, let him do everything in the future, treat herself as if she was severely handicapped and could not take care of herself, and so on. Blushing, she cleared her throat and swung into Li's arms, pouncing on him. Leah caught her steadily and waited for Gu Mingming to order him about female matters for the first time with his eyes full of smiles. Gu Mingming raised her head under Li's guiding and expectant gaze and pointed at Nina, saying, "Leah, help me teach her a lesson, all right?" "As you wish." Li's smile bloomed like a poppy at a speed visible to the naked eye. His voice was full of charm, like a smooth melody played by a cello. These 4 simple words made Gu Mingming's maiden heart explode more than any other situation. Her heart was like a little beast crying piteously for food, wishing that she could hold up a support sign and shout, "Leah is so handsome, his boyfriend power is at the max." Leah placed Gu Mingming beside Sandy. He felt that other than his own embrace, Sandy's side was Gu Mingming's favorite place. After settling Gu Mingming, who looked like a fangirl, Leah turned to face Nina. He was clearly smiling, but it sent a chill down Nina's spine. It was even more horrifying than when Elvis was pinching her neck. Taking 2 steps back, Nina said, Leah, what are you doing? I am Saint Nazir's precious female." "Indeed, you are the precious female of Saint Nazir." Li's voice was slow as if he was narrating, "But Ming is my female. To me she's a million times more precious than you." As he spoke, Li's fingernails grew out one by one. Gu Mingming could only see his back view, but she could clearly feel his murderous aura. Not to mention Nina, who was facing him directly. She was so scared that her legs turned to jelly and she sat on the ground. She did not even have the strength to escape and was just like a dog. This time Gu Mingming did not stop Leah. Firstly, she believed that Leah had a sense of propriety. No matter how scary he acted, he would not really take Nina's life. Secondly, Adali's injuries were too severe and he almost lost his life. If she did not teach Nina a memorable lesson, Gu Mingming felt that she would not be able to raise her head in front of Sandy in the future. After all, no matter what, he was involved in this matter. As for the third point, Gu Mingming glanced over and had long seen the restless males at the borders of Sandy's territory. The moment Leah launched his attack, they could no longer control themselves and rushed in together. They were already standing in front of Nina, blocking her way. Gu Mingming's eyes darted around. Aside from the topic, sharing a new article from a friend. Actually, it was a modern romance article covered in a layer of fantasy. Sweet pampering textbook, welcome to read it. The Domineering Little Wife of Pluto by Invisible Stars. This was the story of a useless cultivator who became a supreme queen. This was the story of Pluto's endless pampering of his domineering little wife. Regarding the female lead, Dongfang Xan, the daughter of a 10,000-year-old zombie king and a human, the second generation of the little princess who was doted on by all. She was a red-level student from the first school of the underworld. At the same time, she was the useless cultivator in his eyes, a troublemaker, the little tyrant of the underworld. Cultivate, cultivate, cultivate. The useless cultivator finally became a queen. Let's see how she saves the world. Regarding the male lead, Yi Lin, the supreme king of the underworld. It was said that she could choose any of the treasures in his mansion of Pluto, and he even sent himself out as her 1-month-old present. Emerging as a dark horse, he successfully captured his little wife. Chapter 149. The appearance of Nina's partner seemed to be exactly what Leah wanted. Flexing his wrists, Leah said, "You guys trespassed into someone else's territory, which is equivalent to disregarding Saint Nazir's rules. As a witch doctor, it's hard for me to pretend that I didn't see it." Nina's partners looked at each other. There seemed to be something wrong with Lee's words, but nothing seemed wrong at the same time. Based on their brains, it was impossible for them to refute Lee's words. Moreover, it was a fact that they trespassed into someone else's territory. There was no way for them to argue. Hence, one of Nina's partners crawled under Lee's feet. This was the way wild beasts expressed obedience. They did not want to and did not dare to become enemies with Leah. "We just want to bring Nina away. We have no intention of trespassing into Sandy's territory." Leah. "Oh no, great witch doctor, please forgive us." Leah did not seem to buy Nina's partner's cowardice. He just played with his sharp claws nonchalantly, smiling faintly. "Bring Nina away? That won't do," my Mingming said. "She wants me to teach her a lesson." Nina's partner was shocked. He stared at Leah with widened eyes. "Nina is a female." Lee's smile deepened. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating, but it was as if it was soaked in poison, making people afraid. "Yeah, Nina is a female." Leah twisted his wrist, grabbing onto Nina's partner who was blocking in front of him. He slowly raised his arm until the male's feet could no longer touch the ground. He kept kicking in the air but had no ability to retaliate. Meanwhile, Leah maintained his God-loving smile, saying calmly, "But you guys are not." With that, Leah tossed the male who was almost dead to the side. At the same time, he transformed into a snow fox and leaped into the air. He stepped on the stomach of the male who had been tossed into the air and leaped into the air. Then he fought with Nina's partners who had already transformed into their original forms. Forgive Gu Mingming for not seeing anything clearly because it was really too fast. About 3 seconds? Gu Mingming blinked, regained her composure and walked stiffly to Lee's side. Seeing Lee's clean hands and the 7 to 8 males lying by his feet, it would be an understatement to say that she was dumbfounded. Those who had transformed into beasts were obviously unable to get up. Each of them only had one wound on their bodies. It wasn't fatal, but it was surprisingly uniform. All the wounds were on the abdomen. Regardless of the depth, the shape was exactly the same as Adri's wound. At least from Gu Mingming's point of view, it was as though the wound had been copied and pasted. It was definitely produced by an assembly line. Leah knew that Gu Mingming was afraid of blood, so he chose to transform into his beast form to fight. Firstly, it was to end the battle quickly, and secondly, after transforming, the original stains on his body would be removed along with the transformation, leaving no traces behind. So when Gu Mingming walked over, there was not a single trace of blood on him. He was still as white and flawless as jade. Holding on to Gu Mingming's little hand, Leah asked with a face full of tenderness, "Is Gu Mingming satisfied with this lesson? If you want, I can also leave the same scar on Nina's body." Gu Mingming hurriedly shook her head. Actually, her so-called lesson was just to leave him with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She had never thought of Leah being so heavy-handed. But now that things had come to this, she could not say that Leah was wrong. After all, Adri was also injured by them to this extent. Forget it, I think they have learned their lesson and will not dare to bully Sandy in the future. Leah maintained his faint smile, but when his gaze did not meet Gu Mingming's, his smile was so cold that it was frightening. You should be glad that you are a member of Saint Nazir or else. Nina's partners, who could not transform back into human form, let out a low whimper in their beast form. That was their submission under the suppression of absolute power. They were very clear that if they were not a member of Saint Nazir, Lee's claw would have directly dug out their hearts, and not just scratched their abdomens. Digression. To be honest, I still haven't found the place where I PK in the book town, but when I scanned the book town's reward area, I was really shocked. I always knew that you all loved me, but I didn't expect you all to love me so much. Thank you Doryman, Hanshi Jianlu, New Day, and our Shin baby for their rewards. I'm so touched, my babies, thank you all. Also, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's Great Banyan Tree Huahuai. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.